Yeah, links in the chat now.
Okay, all right, let's go.
Do you believe in free speech? Do you believe
No.
that
No.
people should be judged by their character, not their skin color? Do
Sure.
you believe in
No,
freedom
kill
of
all blue
religion?
people.
If you believe these things, you're probably not a progressive. You
Oh,
might
really?
think you're a progressive.
You
I
might
used to think
think
I
so.
was. My show, The Rubin Report, was originally part of the Progressive Young Turks network.
Oh, that proves he's
Progressives struck
progressive.
me as
Go progressive.
liberals
You named
but
yourself after
louder.
genocide,
Progressives were the
guys.
nice guys. They looked out
Liberals,
for the
but
little.
okay, let's. Progressive struck me as liberals, but louder. That's some political theory there. Liberals
Dank.
are the word liberal means classical liberal in some cases, so that means support for a capitalist free market, one that or a free market or a market that's has some regulation, some kind of interference. But progressive is mostly a stance on, well, a bit on economics and mostly social issues as well. So liberal and progressive, there is some overlap, but progressive is kind of inherently left leaning, whereas liberal not really. Although in America it kind of has that connotation, right? So anyway,
If you,
Little guy they cared about.
what?
sorry, saying if you vote for Trump, you're most likely a liberal.
More or less.
Okay,
It's just the
Women and minorities.
yeah,
They embrace change. In short, who wouldn't want to be a progressive? But over the last couple of
Reactionaries.
years, the meaning of the
reactionaries.
word progressive has changed.
Oh, really?
Progressives used to say, I may disagree with what you say, but I'll fight to the death for your right to say
Well,
it.
that's more
Not
liberal,
anymore.
but okay.
Banning speakers whose
Again,
opinions you don't agree with from college campuses.
okay. So right off the bat, banning the guy's getting kicked out. And he's like flying in the air.
Team Rocket blasting off again.
Remember when they launched Milo
let's.
Yiannopoulos out of the cannon? And he
All right. You say that, but we really should do that unironically.
With a
yeah.
trebuchet. Trebuchets are the best.
So what
Can we
he's saying
can
is,
we launch a 90 kilogram Yiannopoulos
yeah.
300 meters?
So what he's saying is that we're kicking out people from universities just because we disagree with them. Oh, how evil! Um, now, who does this actually happen to? It usually happens to people who, it is argued, are hate mongers who are spreading hatred in the guise of some kind of free exchange of ideas. Um, they try to boil it down to you just disagree with them. If if this really is true, if it really is the left just attacking anyone who disagrees with them, then why aren't they kicking out like right wing economics professors? Why aren't they kicking out the Milton Friedman types? When was the last time you heard of like a right wing economics person that was kicked out because they hated his right wing economics? Have you ever heard of that?
Actually,
Somehow
I
it's to
know.
do with
I was
Sweden and
taught
refugees.
my second year economics professor was a right wing libertarian.
And
So
well, have you kicked
there
him
is
off
no
the campus
liberal
yet?
brainwashing in the universities.
So yeah, the fact that that doesn't happen to people in economics kind of tells me it's not really disagreeing. It's more the fact that they are at least accused of spreading hatred, and they don't want people see kind of a difference between a free exchange of reasonable ideas on political things and just spewing hatred, right? Just yeah. Anyways, it's I think it's dishonest.
That's not progressive. Prohibiting
It's
any
not
words
progressive.
not approved of as politically correct. That's not progressive.
Who exactly is prohibiting words? Exactly. Prohibiting any
Uh,
words not approved of as politically correct.
Obama,
Like
Obama's doing it.
Oh yeah.
who's prohibiting words in what context with what power? It doesn't bother saying. It's just someone's prohibiting something.
Usually they think
It's
like when they use prohibit, it's nowhere near in the same vein as the government literally barging into your house for saying the word.
yeah. Yeah,
That's the
exactly. That's
thing.
the point. He's just saying this in the abstract, like prohibiting things you don't like. Oh, that's terrible. But who's prohibiting it? In what context? In what sort of way? We don't know. We don't know what he's talking about here.
Also,
He's getting away with just vague generalities.
you have to understand this. When you do something, there are consequences. So when you say something, there will be consequences. People will be rather upset if you say hateful shit, homophobic shit, like you know,
Yeah.
many a good Milo or Richard Spencer.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
then what happened to them?
yeah, I cover
I
that in my
Right.
free speech video.
I
The
don't want
freedom of speech is not
I,
freedom from consequences. Yeah.
right. So just because the state can't take action against you doesn't mean the people can't.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Right.
Putting trigger warnings on books, movies, music, anything that might offend people,
Pause it right there.
that's not progressive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna say two things. Number one, I really don't like the person whoever came up with the phrase trigger warning because it's gonna make the right wing ignore the fact that we've put content warnings on things for like forever, just to
Yeah.
warn people about shocking material.
Yeah.
Like we have ratings on video game covers, movies, things like that. Or like when documentaries come up, we're saying disclaimer: this movie was made in 1930, which wasn't the best time for, let's say, African Americans or women, and therefore you're going to see a lot of prejudices. Or disclaimer: this talks about drug abuse, sexual assault, things like that, because they know these things can be legitimately uncomfortable to people. I just like obviously the right wing is completely in the wrong in this for getting offended ironically over like content warnings, although I will say this, I really wish the phrase trigger warning was never coined and we just stuck to content warning, because it would have made the right wing shut up a whole lot more easily. But yes, obviously the right wing are the guys who are in the wrong here.
Yeah. I
Like
guess.
holy shit, do they like do they throw a fit when they see like an R rating on their favorite video game?
Yeah. That's the
My
thing. Like we
god.
have the Motion Picture Alliance Association for films. We have the Entertainment Software Rating Board for video games, and we have the parental, what is it, the PMRC music whatever for music. So we already have all these things, and he's saying we're putting trigger warnings on music and everything. I can't even walk out my door without getting hit by a trigger warning. Oh my god. Like music already has the parental advisory stickers. What the fuck is he talking about here? It's very strange. He's being so vague and not even saying anything. It's basically just virtue signaling at this point, which is funny that the left gets accused of this. What is this if not virtue signaling? He's not making any argument. He's not even explaining why he doesn't like trigger warnings. He's not saying anything about them at all other than that's regressive, that's not progressive. As if that's an argument. You just say trigger warnings. There you go. Like, does he actually think that he's making an argument here? I don't think he is. I think he realizes that he's not actually proving any points or anything. He just made this video, to make money and to, like I said, virtue signal to people. But yeah, what is the problem with trigger warnings? As far as I know, people think that they might lead to censorship somehow, even though it's a voluntary thing that people just put it in front of what they're going to say or write or something. But yeah, it's so strange. Like, how is it ever going to stop someone from saying something if it's like a voluntary? I've never seen it move beyond being voluntary, but yeah, this guy. So that's probably my favorite line out of this whole video is there's trigger warnings on music and movies and everything. Oh my god, that's not progressive.
Also, it's a it's just an act of basic human empathy,
Yeah,
because you don't
More or
know who's going
less.
to be reading what you wrote or looking at
yeah,
what you drew.
yeah,
So if you write a horrific scene of, I'm going to invoke veterans because that's what liberals really love. You're going to invoke a horrible scene like a real Saving Private Ryan scene, and some veteran happens to read that or watch that. What do you think is going to happen?
yeah,
He's gonna be, if he, especially if the veteran, he or she or they have any form of PTSD.
yeah. And people
That
understand that because we already have, all trigger warnings happen on TV all the time, following
Yeah, or like
programs and
seizure
things that are
warnings
mature.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's basically the same thing.
Yeah, I always
So
hear
what
it.
you're really doing is just protecting vulnerable people.
But they're offended because it's called a trigger warning. Just the name of something offends them, which is intensely ironic, because they accuse everyone else of being triggered. They're the one that's getting offended over literally nothing. Anyways, let's
And
continue.
cringingly childish.
Yeah, they're just offended at the idea of a trigger warning or a safe space. Never mind what it does. They apparently don't know.
Progressive either. All of this has led me to believe that much of the left
All of
is no
what?
longer
You didn't explain
progressive,
anything.
but regressive.
Regressive.
This is one of the reasons I've spent so
What
much
is it
time on my
regressing back
show
to?
talking about the regressive left.
Are there any explanations
This
here, Dave?
regressive ideology doesn't judge people as individuals, but as a collective. If you're
How does it
black
do
or
that?
female or Muslim or Hispanic or member of any other minority group, you're judged differently
It's
than the
coming at a
most
time when
evil of
there's
all
white
things, a white
nationalists.
Christian male.
Wait,
The
wait.
regressive
Females
left
are a
ranks
minority?
minority groups in a pecking order to compete in a kind of oppression Olympics. Gold medal goes to the most offended. Martin
There's
Oh,
people attacking all kinds of Muslims and immigrants and all this shit all the time, and he thinks the big problem is oppression Olympics. The left is so obsessed about who's being oppressed and who's not, and who's in a group and
How
yeah,
many
it's
hate
pretty funny.
how many
And
hate crimes have been committed since Trump got elected? Like the last number I saw was, what was it? At
yeah,
least 80
but the fact that the left talks
in a
about
month.
racism is the big problem. Um, oh, here's a good part.
Luther
oh
King
boy, the MLK
Jr.'s
card.
dream that his children would be judged by their character and not their skin color was a liberal idea, but these days it's not a progressive ideal. And what about religious
So,
freedom?
remember this now. He invokes the name of Martin Luther King. Why does he do that? As a good thing, right? As an example of someone who's had good ideas, and who he's proving his point by saying that Martin Luther King did it, and he's such a good and virtuous guy. Remember that. We'll come
Martin,
back to it.
Martin Luther King, the socialist,
Yeah.
by the way.
Pretty much.
So remember that he did that. We'll come back to this.
The idea that no one else can tell you what you have to believe. Surely progressives still support that basic right.
No, they don't.
Well, not so much.
No.
I'm a married
Well,
gay
would
man,
just-
so you might
that's right,
think
don't
that
care.
I
Pause right there.
appreciate the government forcing
there.
a
Hang on.
Christian
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm a married gay man.
Yeah.
Like,
As a gay
implying your
man.
background prevents you from making, like, some serious messed up decisions. Like, it's the same thing Milo Yiannopoulos pulls off, or,
Yeah.
like, black conservatives in America pull off. Like, for all this talk about, the leftists are judging people based on their skin and they refuse to say something if a minority is acting up. And I'm just like, well, isn't it like the one black conservatives who constantly go like, as a black man, or they keep going like,
Yeah.
I have a token XYZ friend right here, therefore I can't be wrong.
Yeah, they
We're
call
not the ones doing
tokens
that.
themselves.
As a
Pretty much.
cultural Marxist, I have to say I hate the cultural Marxists. They are despicable.
I bet you have cultural Marxist friends, don't you?
Yes,
This
I have
is
many of
cultural
them.
Marx.
I have lots of cultural Marxist friends. I like them just fine. See,
Okay, so okay, so now we're
Blink
coming
twice
back.
if you're in danger.
Now we're coming back to the Martin Luther King thing. So remember that
Yeah.
he just invoked the good name of good guy Martin Luther King, and now listen what he says.
baker or photographer or florist to act against their religion in order to cater, photograph, or decorate my wedding. But you'd be wrong. A government that can force Christians to violate their conscience can force me to violate mine. If a
Oh,
baker
no.
won't bake you a cake, find another baker. Don't demand that the state tell him what to do with his private business. I'm pro-choice.
Okay, so forget about the pro-choice. I find that hilarious because he just invoked the good name of Martin Luther King, and then he proceeds to shit all over civil rights. He says, why should the state be forcing these businesses to cater to do business with these gays? If they don't want to, they should have the freedom. Why don't you find another baker? Well, gee, Dave, it's almost like there was this big mass of people who were completely denied all kinds of services by businesses that were open to the public, and they all got together and started breaking and started demanding that they be served by these businesses and getting arrested and getting thrown in jail and marching on Washington because they thought this is bullshit. You shouldn't be allowed to discriminate against minorities if you're open to the public. Who do you think was it that did that?
Now that's what I call cognitive dissonance.
Who could it have been that caused the Civil Rights Act to be
Cognitive
passed in
bias.
1965, making discrimination against minorities illegal? I don't know. Can you think of who it is? I don't know.
No idea.
Who led that struggle? I can't. I don't know. I guess we'll.
It was a liberal cuck. It is a liberal cuck who did it.
The SJWs, how dare they?
So
It's a liberal cuck.
not only are these arguments terrible, but it shows a kind of a disturbing lack of knowledge about history, about how things got to where they are, by virtue of the fact that he praises Martin Luther King and completely shits all over his legacy in the next minute. So, anyways, let's continue.
But a government that can force a group of Catholic nuns, literally called
Catholic
the Little
nuns.
Sisters of the Poor,
They're
to
little
violate
Catholic
their faith and pay
nuns.
for abortion-inducing
Oh,
birth control, can force anyone to do anything. That's not
Anything but
progressive,
that.
that's regressive.
Yeah, that's regressive.
Today's progressivism has become a faux moral movement hurling charges of racism,
Because
bigotry,
it's there.
xenophobia,
there.
homophobia, Islamophobia, and a
Holy
slew of
shit.
other meaningless
Yeah.
buzzwords at anyone.
Meaningless.
Okay, pause right there. Pause right there.
Everything I disagree with is a buzzword.
Yeah, buzzwords, and
Remember
then
that, mortals.
yeah, they accuse us of buzzwords, but then they go yell things like the progressive left, like constantly, without like specifying. Are they talking about social democrats? Are they talking about socialists? Are they talking about communists, anarchists, etc., etc.? And then things like, oh, you SJW cuck, things like that, or you're all just a bunch of race-baiting ideologues and virtue signaling, yada yada yada.
Regressive
They're like
cultural
record
Marxist
players.
If
like
you're
that,
if you're a Deleonist, they're not talking about
It's
you. By
just
the
a
way.
bunch of fucking mudslinging is all it is.
There's this one Paul Joseph Watson video where he's all like, the regressive cultural Marxist virtue signaling postmodern cultural theory, and he just goes on for like a minute.
Okay, hold on. I take
Oh,
offense
God,
to that. Kurt Vonnegut was an amazing writer.
You've just reminded me of the fact that his Paul Joseph Watson's video on Sweden is going to be the next trash can of ideology. Stay tuned, by the way.
That's gonna be a
It-
hard one.
But seriously though, I am going to suffer for my
Let's plug
craft
in.
for this. It is on so many levels a really just horrible manipulative. as
Yeah,
fuck
I mean
video.
this is like, you're a trooper, because this is unbearable to watch.
Yeah.
This is barely 3 minutes in, and I already want to jump out my window.
Yeah.
I'm already three minutes in, I'm already retching just a little
it really
bit.
is insulting to anyone that has any, any ability to think critically. To think that people actually fall for this ridiculous sophistry.
Oh man.
The battle of ideas has been replaced by a battle of feelings, and outrage has replaced honesty.
Okay.
Diversity reigns supreme as long as it's not that pesky diversity of thought. This isn't the recipe for a free
Emotions for the
society,
weak.
It's a recipe for authoritarianism.
Oh no.
For these reasons, I can no longer call myself a progressive. I don't really call myself a Democrat either.
Shouldn't
I'm
have
a
ever called
classical
yourself
liberal,
progressive.
a free thinker. And
Drink
as much as I don't
thinker.
like to admit it,
I'm a
defending my
free
liberal values has suddenly become a conservative position. So if you think people should be able to say what they think without being punished for it, that people should be judged by their behavior, not their skin color, and that people should be able to live the way that they want to live without government interference, then there's not much left on the left for you.
Government
I'll keep trying to
interference.
explain that to progressives until I'm totally left out. I'm Dave Rubin of the Rubin Report for Prager University.
Okay,
That's
That was
To
shit.
subscribe to
I'll be
our
left
YouTube
for
channel,
dead.
click here. To help keep
Left
our
to
videos free,
YouTube.
donate here.
Don't listen to him.
Can
Subscribe
I-
to my channel, not this. And that's it.
They need money. They have enough money.